breaking news. Za'Darius Smith is a Detroit Lion.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So we get the breaking news.
We get, finally. Bro, how many times is the breaking news on every show? Now, goodness gracious, Adam Schefter, Jordan Schultz, Tom Pelissero, Ian Rappaport, everybody is reporting this. Now, sources, the Browns are trading standout edge Za'Darius Smith to the Lions, who adds a key presence to the edge to help make up for the loss of one great Aiden Hutchinson.
Man, all right.
Instant reaction. I need your instant reaction, Flannel Sam. We're going to go around the crew, too. Didn't even get a chance to introduce everybody. Ooh. Goodness gracious, the Lions.
I mean, instant reaction is I'm ecstatic. Because to me, and I'm gonna go into way more detail after we come back from break, but to me, if they hadn't have done it, I would hesitate to call the Lions Super Bowl favorites, but now that they have, I think the Lions are the no doubt Super Bowl favorites.
We have the compensation.
Yeah.
From Adam Schefter, he said, per sources, Za'Darius Smith in a 2026 7th is going to Detroit for a 2025 5th and a 2026 6th.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't mind that at all, because the reality is as much as we know that Brad Holmes has found gems in later rounds, a 5th and a 6th, if you would have told me that was the compensation, I would have, one of those pick sort of situations. And it looks
goodness gracious.
And
I'm fired up.
Obviously, the Browns, they're probably going to go into a long rebuild. They want as many picks as they can, but that to me is good, like just on surface, we obviously don't know how it's going to play out, but on surface, it is a fantastic deal.
This is a fantastic deal, and there was a lot of people who wondered if Brad Holmes was going to do anything. You know, we all believed that something needed to be done. We all kind of heard some of the noise and some of the rumors, and now all of a sudden we get this piece, something that he didn't do last year. This year, though, it's a little bit different, and I'm glad that he made this piece. I do wonder if Aiden Hutchinson is on the team, if he even makes a move of this caliber. But now, go and get it done this year. It sets this team up so well down the road, in my opinion, as well. But just go and make something happen. You have bolstered this. And I talked to a couple people as well at the Pistons game in media who they want the Lions to go out and even make another move. Go out there, like we've talked about.
There's time.
There's still time. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And when you look at the compensation, it's like, you know what? They still have assets.
Yeah.
Big assets.
Well, and that's what's so great about it. I honestly did not think that a deal was going to happen in the middle of our show, not even in the middle, at the beginning of our show, to where there is enough time if they wanted to add somebody else, like Azeez Ojulari. I'm just throwing a name out there. But as I said before, this to me, considering how well some Lions players have stepped up on the defensive side of the ball, like a Jack Campbell, like Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch, taking their games to an even greater level, really the only thing that worried me was potentially if they go up against a really good quarterback and a really good offense, somebody even better than like a Jordan Love, that their lack of pass rush would have been a problem. But Za'Darius Smith, to me, given all of that, he doesn't make up for the production of Aiden Hutchinson, but he does enough, because when we come back, I'm going to really highlight just how badly I think this team needed somebody like Za'Darius Smith and what he actually brings.
Tip the cap to Brad Holmes, because I believe in the moves that he makes. Not all of them are going to pan out. I don't expect him to be 100%, but I do expect him to always keep at 100. And this move to go out there and get Za'Darius Smith, and hopefully, I'm hoping that there's more cooking, because that, to me, was not a bad deal. I thought the compensation was good. I know some of the things that we discussed. I know some of those things that we heard other people in the national media discuss. But this right here is one that I believe works for the Lions long-term, as well as for this Super Bowl window.
Oh, yeah. You absolutely love to see it, because Za'Darius Smith, I mean, let's just be quite frank. He comes in and is immediately an upgrade, a big upgrade over anybody that the Lions have been playing at the edge rusher position. And before we even talk about Za'Darius Smith, shout out to the Detroit Lions and their defense for going 3-0 in games in which Aiden Hutchinson was out. I wasn't so sure that they'd be able to do it. I was wrong. Shout out to this defense and for players stepping up. But the reality is, moving forward, you're not going to be able to get one sack in a 2-game stretch and only give up 14 points in both of those games. You needed a Za'Darius Smith, because right now he's kind of having, I wouldn't say a renaissance. He definitely wasn't bad last year, but in terms of his counting stats, Za'Darius Smith has 5 sacks already this year, where last year he had 5.5. And those 5 sacks, the other than Aiden Hutchinson, the player who has most on the Detroit Lions is Levi Onwuzurike with 2.5. He's got more pressures than anybody on the Lions besides for Aiden Hutchinson, tackles for loss, hits, hurries, all of that. Za'Darius Smith is a real NFL professional edge rusher. That is just what he does. And also, as I've said before, not that Za'Darius Smith is like a great run defender or anything like that, but he's a veteran. He knows how to set the edge, and I keep saying that the run defense has not been the same since Aiden Hutchinson has been out, and I do think Za'Darius Smith is going to be able to help with that. He can win one-on-ones. He's kind of that archetypal type player that Aiden Hutchinson and Marcus Davenport was. He's not a Sam linebacker. He's not a pass rush specialist. He is a true hand-in-the-dirt defensive end that can wreak havoc, that can be pretty good against the run, and I do think there's going to be a game or two throughout this season where Za'Darius Smith dominates, where he maybe gets a sack or two, maybe forces a fumble. He's a damn good player, and Terrell Williams, I'm sure, is excited to get his hands on Za'Darius Smith. Pause.
Definitely. Hey, you know what, man? Today, set up the Glaze Factory. It don't even matter. The Detroit Lions are definitely paving a road to the Super Bowl for themselves. I know people were seeing so many other teams getting involved in the trade market the last 2 or 3 seasons. And for the Lions specifically, the last couple seasons, especially this deadline, to see Brad Holmes get involved in this way. From a strategy standpoint, teams have to account for Za'Darius Smith. That's the thing. When you're going through game planning, you can't line up your offensive line and just say, you know what, one-on-one with Za'Darius Smith. No, you have to say, you know what, he is out there. Yeah. What are they going to do now? Because this defensive line was already holding serviceable. So even though we don't believe that it was as sustainable long-term, adding a Za'Darius Smith to this already serviceable defensive line, I do believe takes them up a couple notches. You're never going to replace exactly what Aiden Hutchinson brings to the table, but you got a whole team now that's playing with the mindset of for Hutch, that's playing with the mindset of next man up, step up, opportunities to do something great. You know, and that's what I like about this move right here, is that I believe Brad Holmes, when he sits down and he does his assessments, clearly believe that Za'Darius Smith is one of those final pieces to make sure that they can get to the Super Bowl and finish the story.
Absolutely. And honestly, with the way that so many players have stepped up on the defensive side of the ball, and I mentioned this before when it was just a possibility that the Lions would get Za'Darius Smith. Now they actually have him. If you look at their defense, and even if you look at their defensive line, if you can get Josh Paschal back healthy next week, and you got Za'Darius Smith, plus the trio of interior defensive linemen in a Reader, Onwuzurike, and a Lee McNeil, plus Anzalone and Campbell, plus Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch, Carlton Davis and Terrion Arnold. That, to me, is a defense that has more than enough, given what the Lions have offensively, to win the Super Bowl. And the way that the defense has stepped up has necessitated that you didn't necessarily need the big, huge splash like a Max Crosby or a Myles Garrett. I would have taken them, don't get me wrong, but for the people who didn't want to necessarily give up, if you had to, multiple first rounds or even give up a high round pick for somebody like Trey Hendrickson, you kind of get the best of both worlds. A fifth this year and a sixth next year, and you even got a draft pick with Za'Darius Smith and a 7th rounder. That, to me, even though it is Brad Holmes, that's nothing, because at this point, Brad Holmes has already flipped the franchise with draft picks. You don't need to hoard more. You don't necessarily need more young talent, although you'd like it. For this season, you needed a Za'Darius Smith, and by golly, Brad Holmes made it happen. It's like Christmas, man, having this guy as our GM.
Hey, and you know what, man? I see the chat and the chat family as well. Let me see here. Big Dan Davis, Woodward Sports. Do you guys believe Brad is done making trades, or do you think there is more coming?
Well, I don't want to speculate necessarily, but the trade deadline is still about 8 hours. Yeah. A little more than 8 hours. So there's definitely more time, but I believe that Za'Darius Smith, obviously, if you want to add somebody else, I'd even be more happy. But I think Za'Darius Smith is enough. I really do. I really do. And for the people who are saying in the chat that he's past his prime, a little bit old, 32, he's having a really good year this year. That's really what I'm basing all of my analysis on Za'Darius Smith on. And I get it. He's not going to be bookend to Myles Garrett, which did make his job easier. I understand that. I understand some of the trepidations. But one of my points is that look who you have currently. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Not trying to disrespect this guy, but Al-Qamin Muhammad was awful against the Packers. He was all right in the previous game, but you don't want him starting games. You want Za'Darius freaking Smith. And Josh Paschal, before the year, I predicted a breakout, and he played really, really well when he was out there before he obviously had to miss the last couple of games. So I think the future is bright, and as I said before, the fact that the Lions were able to go undefeated when you didn't have Hutch, when you had on paper one of the worst collection of edge rushers in the NFL, is a testament to this team, and Za'Darius Smith will just put them right over the top.